I'm currently in Perth, Australia, the furthest city from where I live on the east coast of the United States, and that is pretty wild. Two years ago, before studying abroad in New Zealand, I traveled to Australia. I visited Sydney, the centre of the outback, and Tasmania. After learning about Australia on that trip, one city captured my attention. Perth, the capital of Western Australia, is the most isolated city in the world and the farthest from where I live. The more I researched it, the more I wanted to go. Perth is not a simple place to get to from Boston, but I was determined to make it happen. So when I decided to volunteer in Cambodia, I set up plans to visit Perth at the end of my journey. This meant transferring in Malaysia. I'm currently just walking around in Malaysia. I got my luggage at the airport at a pod where I'm going to be spending the night. I'm just trying to find dinner here on the way to Perth, Australia. How chill is that? Okay, don't let that fool you. I was actually quite scared when the driver unexpectedly dropped me off in an empty part of the city at night in this new country. And I was hungry. But luckily I found another driver who got me out of there, and he kept asking me if I worked at the hospital because I was picked up near some hospital. So kinda cool he didn't think I was a tourist. He then dropped me off at a collection of restaurants as I had originally intended, and I got something yummy to eat. Upon arrival in Perth, I checked into my hostel. I'm up on the top floor, which is a little unfortunate. It's pretty high up, but that's okay. We just climb up and we go to sleep. On my first full day in Perth, I started out with breakfast at a cafe, and then I headed to Kings Park, a huge park and botanical garden in the city. I happened to be there in time for a free walking tour, so I joined in. Afterwards, I was off to Fremantle for the daily markets. There were so many delicious things to eat, it was hard to choose. This is the Indian Ocean, and I'm about to go in it. Woo! Feels good! I learned that my tour that I had scheduled for the following day had been cancelled due to bushfires. So I pivoted and moved my third day plans to the second day. Those plans? Visiting the world's friendliest animal, the quokka. Rottnest Island, where I'm currently sitting, is just off the western coast of Australia. It's a beautiful island full of the adorable, friendly quokkas, which you can actually meet and take cute pictures with. And it's full of wonderful beaches where you can go swimming, snorkeling, and you can travel around the whole island by bicycle, which is what I've been doing today. And let me just say, it's amazing. It was a short ferry ride over to the island, and I spent the whole day biking around. I rode over 25 miles and would stop every few minutes when I spotted a quokka. At the end of the ride, I jumped in the water to cool down. The fire had cleared, so my tour was happening. I had free time in the morning, so I walked to the waterfront, learned about gold at the Perth Mint, walked to a lovely park, and checked out the Matigurup Bridge before eating lunch and getting picked up for a journey into the desert. We first stopped at a huge sand dune, and we all got to go sandboarding, which is basically like sledding, but on sand. It was exhilarating, and I kept climbing up the hill to go back down again. Then it was off to the Pinnacles. Geological monoliths stand scattered throughout the desert of Nambung National Park. It is a sight unlike any other. As it got dark, the guides hosted a traditional Australian barbecue for us. I befriended an older couple whom I'd met at Sandboarding, and I chatted with them during dinner. The guides brought the telescopes out, and we had the opportunity to look at the stars and planets with almost zero light pollution, since we were in the darkness of the desert. It was a very special experience. My fourth and final day in Perth wasn't spent much in Perth at all. I'd signed up for another tour, which would take me east into the wheat belt of Western Australia. On the way, we saw many landmarks, including a dog cemetery and a cave. We stopped for lunch at a little restaurant where a very enthusiastic animal keeper brought a lizard to our table and took some of us to see the little zoo in the back. There was also a toy soldier museum there, so I checked it out. Behind me is Wave Rock. Wave Rock was the main attraction of this day trip, and it did not disappoint. This staggeringly big rock really did look like a wave, and so, of course, I had to take the classic photo. We also checked out Hippo's Yawn, a rock formation that looks like a hippo yawning. Aboriginal women used to come here to give birth. The ride back to Perth from there was quite long, and the trip back home to the US was even longer. But I didn't mind the ride. This wasn't just me going to Perth, Australia. It was me demonstrating to myself that I can take on big adventures, navigate challenges on my own, and bring my wild ideas to life. I made it happen.